Live from a NASCAR bunker in Kyle's parents' basement, it's Turn the Radio Off with Mike Parsons and Kyle Bauer.
Become a fan at Facebook.com/TTRO Show. Follow along on Twitter.com/TTRO Show. Or just listen right now. It's Turn the Radio Off.
Well, happy thanks gosh darn giving, everybody. Flying solo this week because, this dream here, this dream of podcasting from my basement is it's hanging on by a thread. And Kyle's not feeling well. It's the holiday week. We were off last week because, my dad was sick. Thought he was going to die on Sunday. Luckily, he didn't. But not to go too personal, but after you say your goodbyes to somebody, you ever go out and meet a group of friends? And you guys leave the restaurant, and you hug, and you say your goodbyes, and then you run into each other again walking back to your car, and it's awkward. That's sort of what it's like when you're now take that and apply it to a loved one who you think is going to pass away, and you say your final goodbyes and thank them for everything, and then they're alive. So all I have to do is just avoid my dad for the rest of my life. But really, in all seriousness, not to get too personal, but there's a lot of people out there that don't like hospitals. Hospitals are full of sick people. It's full of suffering. But it's also full. They're also full, and this is going to be corny, but they're also full of people who are just great at their jobs. A lot of kindness, a lot of compassion, and to watch a group of nurses and medical professionals rush to save somebody's life, it's amazing. It's incredible. And, your family is having the worst day of their life, and they think all hope is lost. But these people who work in these hospitals, it's their job. It's their job to not give up. And they may feel like it's just another day on their job. But to that family who feels like they're about to lose a loved one, they're superheroes. So just a little moment of brevity and a little moment of sincerity. If you're a Beaumont nurse, you rock. If you're a nurse anywhere else, you probably rock. And the cafeteria at Troy Beaumont kicks ass. They make a nice coney dog. So looking forward to my next hospital visit. Hopefully it's less scary and less serious. But like I said, Kyle is off this week. We were off last week. I didn't want to go 2 weeks without doing a show because it's hanging on by a thin thread, and I have to be honest. As this election season went on, as this campaign season went on, I've wanted to do the show less and less, and I think it's just because I'm sick of opinions. I'm sick of opinions I disagree with. I'm sick of opinions I agree with. Hell, I'm even sick of my own opinion. And it's just been a grind because it seems like we're just constantly in this cycle of heinous shit that Trump said or some heinous shit that was uncovered that Hillary Clinton did, and it feels like for over a year, Kyle and I have been having the same conversation every week, and it grinds. It grinds because it gets so vitriolic, and you have a hard time separating fact from fiction, from fabrication. There's been a lot of controversy about fake news sites. A lot of people saying fake news sites all over social media have been influencing campaigns. Mark Zuckerberg says, oh, no, that's ridiculous. Facebook doesn't have that influence. Try telling that to your people you're trying to sell advertising to. But I think it's true. And I thought that it would ratchet down a little bit after the election, but it seems like it's gotten worse after the election. Right, you got people who supported Hillary. They're putting out all this stuff about Donald Trump. You're not sure if it's true. You got pro-Trump people putting stuff out about Hillary Clinton supporters. Both sides are saying that violence against them are on the upswing now because people are either pissed off that Donald Trump won or people are emboldened that Donald Trump won, so they're going after minorities, saying that Trump's in charge now, and we can and you're going back to Africa or whatever the hell. And I'm sure that some of these stories are true, but I also feel like a lot of these stories are anger clickbait propaganda, and it's been a real mind f to be on social media lately. And I hope the noise goes away. And there's been a lot of talk about the alt-right lately. Alt-right is, I guess, what the Tea Party used to be called, or maybe the Tea Party and the alt-right are separate. I don't know, but the alt-right, they're super far right. A lot of people associate them with racism. They're definitely radical and sensationalist, and a lot of people feel that they're going to have a lot of influence in the Donald Trump White House because now hold on, I need to Google this name because I can never remember if it's Steve Bannon or Steve O'Bannon. Maybe that's just because I have a craving for Lucky Charms. Steve Bannon, former head of Breitbart.com, which I knew was becoming batshit crazy during the I think it was the Republican National Convention, where one of their higher-ups, Milo Yiannopoulos, went on an unprovoked racist tirade against Leslie Jones for her role in Ghostbusters: The Reboot. I knew they were batshit crazy back then, and I think that they started off as a far-right publication, but I think when Andrew Breitbart was still alive, there's at least a little bit of sanity. But they've just gone totally off the rails. And, of course, the guy who's run it now is one of Donald Trump's highest-ranking cabinet members. So the alt-right is really freaking people out. There's been a video going around from an alt-right convention where people are singing Hail Trump, Hail America with the Nazi sign up. I don't know if that's indicative of the entire movement or just a couple of wackos. But this is also leading people to believe that to counter the alt-right movement, which a lot of people think have gone fascist and racist, there's going to be an alt-left movement that rises up. Glenn Beck, one of the founders of theblaze.com, which has been instrumental in the alt-right movement, he has been getting quote-unquote woke lately. And he's been saying that he's been wrong about Obama. He praises Black Lives Matter. He's saying a lot of common sense thing about race relations in the country and how we need to listen to each other. And, you know, conventional thinking is you fight fire with fire. And I really don't know how you combat the alt-right when they get a little too radical for their own good. But I don't think an alt-left counterpoint would be good. I think that would just lead to more inflammatory discourse when people need to start moving towards the middle, right? Because if you're too far on one side, you're not going to listen to the other side. It becomes a team sport. And it's almost like if you start compromising, you're conceding defeat to the other side, and it becomes a turf war, and nothing gets done, nothing gets accomplished, and we start seeing relations, whether they're race relations or relations between two different ideologies, become a tinderbox, and that's not going to be good for anyone. So, I hope that the alt-right moderates a little bit, and the alt-left movement doesn't rise up, because we don't need these two flamethrowers flaming each other. And you know what? My opinion might change if I think the alt-right is going to, if the alt-right is running too wild when it comes to culture and government policies. Because let's be honest, just about all my faith, my modernism in this election has been shaken to its core. So don't listen to me. What the hell do I know? I wasn't even planning talking about this on the first segment. Going to take a break, reconvene, turn the radio off on the internet.
Less rock, more talk. Turn the radio off.
Become a fan at peoplehatemypodcast.com.
Hi, time for timer. What? No time for breakfast? Now look, since 6 o'clock last night you haven't eaten a bite. Come on, I'll show you why that's really not the way for a growing kid to start a busy day. Here we are inside your body, and this noisy empty space is your stomach getting angry 'cause there's no food in the place. Uh-oh, let's find some food fast. Now listen, I don't want you to think this is the best way to eat breakfast, but in case you can't cook, and if you haven't time for a good cereal and a well-balanced meal, then this quickie breakfast is better than nothing at all, okay? Hey, here's orange juice and milk and fruit just waiting to be taken. And bless my soul, right here's a bowl with one cold piece of steak in, a hard-boiled egg or chicken leg or cheese or luncheon meat, or a peanut butter sandwich. Any time of day is a treat. So to keep your mom from grumbling and stop that stomach rumbling and keep your legs from stumbling when you play, you gotta eat some kind of breakfast every day. Hi, time for timer. What? No time for...
Switch off the radio. Turn off the radio. Shut down your radio system.
We'll do it live!
What?
I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Turn the radio off. There you go. I'm drunk.
The one thing about doing the show solo is that I seem to run out of breath sometime during the segment. I didn't end that last segment because I was out of things to talk about or because I felt like it was dragging. It was dragging from the moment I opened my mouth. I ended that last segment because I was out of breath. And that means one of two things. Either I'm out of shape, which, let's face it, I'm probably not going to be doing anything about that anytime soon. Or there's some kind of technique that your Jim Romes or your Limbaughs use that keep them. Because all right. Look at Limbaugh. I'm in much better shape than Limbaugh. How does he go? How does he go 3 hours windbagging without running out of breath? There's got to be a technique. It can't be because I mean Jim Rome. He's a thin guy, but he's got a good 25 years on me. But you know he's one of those LA guys, so he probably works out and he probably does some kind of like. Super CrossFit or whatever's big out in LA right now. So I can buy that that he doesn't run out of breath because he's in good shape. But you can't tell me Rush Limbaugh doesn't run out of breath because he's in good shape. He must have a breathing technique. It hasn't been a great couple of weeks for middle schoolers in the city of Royal Oak. And I think back to some of the things I did back in school that got me in trouble. Some of the things that got my friends and classmates in trouble. And you're in deep shit. You know you're in big, big trouble when the trouble you get into at school ends up on the news. Now, last week, a video went viral of the lunchroom at Royal Oak Middle School chanting, build the wall, days after Donald Trump was elected president-elect of the United States. And then, earlier this week, there was a noose found hung in the bathroom in Royal Oak Middle School. And there's a couple of things that come to mind on this. Number one, I don't think that this is indicative of there being a bunch of racist preteens out in Royal Oak. I think that there's one or two turds that incited a chant riot, I guess. But think back to when you're in school, okay? Kids would just start chanting things because kids are kids. There's peer pressure. There's probably one or two turds there whose father was a little too overzealously supportive of Donald Trump, who came to school and started chanting something, and the rest of the kids were like, oh, here's some disorder in the lunchroom. I better chime in. So I think that's what happened there. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, the hate and the xenophobia is spreading to our kids. And, I mean, there's a point to that. I mean, you take after your parents, but, I mean, I think of some of the things I joined in on as a kid. I didn't really understand it. I just wanted to be part of the crowd. I would say racially insensitive things to my white friends, not knowing how damaging it is. So I don't think this is indicative that a whole generation of racists are being raised out in Royal Oak. Now, the good parents need to step in and do something and correct their children's behavior, but I don't think that this spells doom for an entire generation. Now, I do think that the noose that was found in the bathroom was a little bit more deliberate and a little bit more insidious. And by the way, Royal Oak Middle School, they seem like they're doing a good job of handling these situations, except for the fact that the video of these kids got put out on the internet. But it seems like the people at the school, from what I understand, soon after that chant started, it was quashed by the adults in the room, and the folks at Royal Oak Middle School found out and suspended the kid who hung the noose in the bathroom. And there's a lot of debate what should happen to the kid. Should the kid be expelled? Should the kid be slapped on the hand? Kids will be kids. And, the simple answer is you don't know. I mean, it depends, right? Talk to the kid. Why did he do it? Was he really trying to be ethnically intimidating? Was he just being a turd trying to get a laugh from his friends? I think what you do is you scare the hell out of the kid, because I remember when I was a kid and I screwed something up really bad, one of the things I responded to most was fear. You absolutely remove the kid from the school. You suspend him and let him know that being expelled is a very, very real possibility. And then you talk to the parents, you talk to the other kids at school, the other parents at school, and you see if the kid shows any remorse. And if you do let the kid back into school, you keep him on a very short leash and let him know that he's on strike 2.5. He's being watched like a hawk. This is why hanging a noose at our school, especially after the Build the Wall chant, is so damaging and is so upsetting to students who may not have your type of upbringing and background, and see how he responds. Because part of a school's job, other than teaching kids reading, writing, and arithmetic, is teaching them how to function in polite society and bringing up decent human beings. Now, that should be on the parents, and I don't know much about the parents. A lot of people are blaming the parents, which I think makes sense, but I know a lot of kids with good parents who did crappy things when they were younger because they got away with it, and as soon as they were caught, they got their butts kicked. So that's what needs to happen here. There needs to be at least a butt kicking, either verbally or physically, from this kid's parent, and then the school can decide what they will based on this kid's motive and how he's reacted to it. But this brings another thought to my mind. After Donald Trump was elected, there was a lot of stories, and again, I think a lot of them were overblown, but there was probably some truth to them. There were a lot of stories about kids crying and being scared now because Donald Trump was elected president, which is scary. I mean, like I said, I thought Donald Trump was anything but presidential, and he's done everything but instill confidence in me as commander-in-chief. But I'm I'm starting to wonder if kids knew too much about this election. Whether parents were telling their kids too much about the election, maybe it was all over the place and it was just so hard to avoid because it was so ubiquitous. But I get the feeling, and I'm not a father yet, so I may eat my words in a couple of years, but I get the feeling that some parents out there were telling their kids a little bit too much about this election. I just think back to 1992. I was 8 years old. I was about the age of these kids who were allegedly crying after the election results came out. And, I was cognizant of the presidential election, but to me it was just two old people trying to become the boss of America. I knew nothing about any of the rhetoric between George H.W. Bush or Bill Clinton. And granted, it probably wasn't as divisive and confrontational of an election as this one, but you got kids chanting "Build a Wall" in a middle school. You got stories of kids going into school crying to teachers or going home from school and crying to their parents, petrified of the next 4 years because of who won the election. And I'm thinking, maybe we're oversharing with our kids a little bit too much. Now, I remember back in 2004, my sister, bless her heart, I'll call her my activist sister. She went to Michigan. She graduated in the year 2000. What was it, the year 2000? 2002. She went off to Michigan State, got very involved in activism. And it was 2004. It was my very first election where I could vote. My sister would call me all the time. Michael, George W. Bush can't win re-election. Why not? Because in his second term, right now he's plotting to invade more countries. He's going to bring back the draft. We're going to go to war, and everyone's going to have to go over there. So I was petrified, right? 2004, my first election. I'm 20 years old. My sister's here telling me all this this Alex Jones type stuff about what George W. Bush is going to do if he's elected. We have to elect John Kerry. If John Kerry does not win the presidency in 2004, America, as we know, is over, and we're all going to go overseas and die in a war. Well, George W. Bush got reelected. I was freaked out, and the next 4 years came and went. A lot of stuff a lot of good stuff happened. A lot of bad stuff happened, but none of the worst case scenarios that we thought George W. Bush was planning ever came to fruition, and they probably weren't ever on his agenda. Now, like I said, Donald Trump has given us a little bit more reason to worry this year, but still, I think that if your preteen is chanting "Build a Wall," if your kid is crying because of who is president, he probably learned too much about this election season from somewhere, and you probably didn't do a great job of comforting or quieting those fears. Again, like I said, not a father, so you're probably thinking, "Oh, the hell is this guy going to teach me how to raise my kid? He doesn't have kids. He's going to eat his words in a couple years," and I might. But you know what? 40 some odd. Yeah, so wait, he's the 44th president. Multiple elections have come and gone, and there hasn't been this many kids crying because of a president-elect. So sounds like something's a bit of a miss. It's Turn the Radio Off on the internet.
Turn the radio off with Mike Parsons.
No drug dealers living next to me. Pretty good deal.
Kyle Bauer.
Yeah.
People hate my podcast.com.
Parents, this is Milton Crea. What do you get when you mix nail polish remover, drain cleaner, antifreeze, battery fluid, cold medicine, starter fluid, and road flares? The answer? Methamphetamine. Commonly known as speed, crystal meth, or ice, meth is just as addictive and more dangerous than crack cocaine. Repeated use can lead to brain damage, convulsions, even death. Once people start using meth regularly, their life expectancy is 5 years. Spend time with your kids. If you don't, someone else will. This message is brought to you by the Elks National Foundation and the Elks Drug Awareness Program.
Turn the radio off. Tell your friends about us. Make them like us on Facebook.
I am not sure if we are broadcasting properly.
Turn the radio off. Online and worldwide. TTROshow.com.
All right, wrapping up the show. A couple quick things to hit on here. Turn the radio off. Flying solo. No Kyle Bauer. Running out of breath because I don't know the proper broadcast breathing technique. I need someone else here. I need Kyle here just so that he can ramble on and on for 30 seconds and I can take a breath. Maybe it's my asthma. Maybe I'm dying. I don't know. All right, Mike Pence got a talking to at Hamilton. Everyone's butthurt. Donald Trump says that there needs to be a safe space while all his supporters are blasting the college liberals for needing a safe space. I don't really care about that. SNL. Donald Trump gets butthurt about SNL because he says it's one side. Does Donald Trump think that SNL's a news show? I don't quite understand his tweet when he said that it's a totally biased and unfunny show, one-sided. Yeah, I suggest equal time. Donald, you know this isn't a newscast, right? You know Lester Holt's not anchoring this thing. It's a comedy show. They've been making fun of conservatives since Sarah Palin. They skewered Bill Clinton for 8 years. It's nonpartisan. I mean, they did some pretty savage sketches against Hillary Rodham Clinton. I don't know. A lot of people are saying Donald Trump's a little too sensitive. I sound like Donald Trump, don't I? A lot of people are saying, folks. No, I'm going to say it. Donald Trump seems like he's a bit too sensitive. He gets his feelings hurt, and then he goes on Twitter when the cast of Hamilton, okay, they single him out, but he's the vice president of the United States. He ran for public office. He's very recognizable now that he's the vice president-elect. And they stopped the show, and they read some very respectful plea about, hey, don't forget about us minorities and LGBT folks. And I got to say, at least Mike Pence seemed to handle it with a little class. But Donald Trump gets his feelings hurt saying that it's insensitive. Coming from a guy who his campaign ran on him being insensitive. And you can parse and spin and get into semantics and say, oh, well, he didn't really say this about minorities. He meant this. Okay, here's a quote unquote publicly rude thing Donald Trump said that nobody can dispute. When he said John McCain wasn't a war hero and he liked people who weren't captured, he didn't apologize for that. So why should the cast of Hamilton apologize to Mike Pence for a respectful plea for civility and inclusion? And then, of course, he gets his feelings hurt when Alec Baldwin makes fun of him on SNL. And then I think his campaign manager was on one of the Sunday morning news shows, and they asked it was on CNN with Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper asked her, and her name escapes me right now. He asked her, well, why is he hate tweeting SNL in the middle of the night? And then she's like, oh, well, why does anyone care? What? Why does Donald Trump care? What the hell? I mean, it's what a weird answer. But this has got to be some kind of strategy. There's got to be some kind of strategy in the business world that carries over to the world of politics where you deny what you do and you accuse everyone else for doing something that you deny doing. It's just weird. It's just bizarre. But anyway, these are minor annoyances, and they've been talked about to death, so I'm not going to spend much time on that. Now, one of the nice things now that the election is over, is there's room for other news. And this is one of those news stories that was sudden but not unexpected. Ever since the Ilitches began building the Little Caesars Arena on Woodward, where I used to park for Tigers games, they started building that new arena in my parking spot. there has been rumors of the Detroit Pistons possibly relocating to downtown to share the Little Caesars Pizza Hot and Ready Arena with the Red Wings. And official word came Tuesday that, yes, that was going to happen. And, I should have had my facts before I started talking about that. I think they're going to start the 2017 season. Both teams are going to inhabit that stadium as soon as it opens, which will be next season. And it seems like, for the most part, it's being well received. I mean, it makes sense, right? I don't know why the Pistons moved to northern Oakland County back in the late 80s, but they did. I don't know if quote-unquote things were getting so bad in Detroit that they wanted to move out. I don't know if they were trying to make little boom areas, little Wrigleyvilles all over the place, stimulate the bars and the restaurants. But obviously, as we all saw what happened with the Silverdome, it's not quite it's not quite the same story with the Palace of Auburn Hills. But if you go out to Auburn Hills around the Palace, there's really nothing there, right? It hasn't really stimulated a entertainment district around it. There's a restaurant across the street that seems to change management every year or two, but it just doesn't make sense to have one of the major professional sports team at the way northern tip of the metro area. I mean, it would make sense if it was like in Royal Oak, a more centralized suburb, Livonia even, but BFE Auburn Hills. Don't know why I'm sure there is a reason, but I just don't know what the reason is. It makes a lot more sense to have all your major sports teams downtown because it's a more centralized location for everyone else. And I think, last I heard, the fate of the Palace was that it was going to be sold and probably knocked down because land out there is a hot commodity, which is much different than the Silverdome. And look, a lot of people in Detroit, we have this weird thing where we get sentimental attachments to buildings, right? There's that train station in Corktown that's just been rotting forever. Speaking of Corktown, how long did Tiger Stadium stay vacant and crumbling before they finally knocked that down? The Silverdome is still rotting away out there at M59 and Updike. So I have a lot of great memories of the Palace. I used to eat a lot of dipping dots at free Vipers games, and they had that little virtual reality simulator where you could shoot baskets against Grand Hill. And Pistons won 3 championships. They went back-to-back in the late 80s. And then, they won 3 championships out there. A lot of great concerts. My fly was down on the Jumbotron. That's my all-time favorite Palace memory. Back when I was in college, a local cage fighting promotion came around, and their ring announcer backed out, so they wanted some free help. So we all had to submit a tape. And so I just put a little bass on my voice, and I was picked. I sent the tape in. I was picked. My voice sounded fantastic, echoing all throughout the cavernous Palace of Auburn Hills. It was mostly empty. It was a small-time promotion, so it was mostly empty. Not a whole lot of pressure. But there's these guys who kept yelling stuff at me. Between fights, I'd go up there, and I would announce who's coming. I would push my voice like this, and by the end of the night, I couldn't speak. But between fights, I would announce who the winner was. The winner, King Kong Bundy, by knockout. And then I would say, coming down to the ring, Stone Cold Steve Austin. No, it wasn't really. It was people from Flint, but, you know what I mean. So every time I would go up there, there'd be these 2 guys in front yelling something at me. Now, me, I want to be professional. I don't want to be deterred. I'm not distracted. I just ignored them until about the 4th time I went up there, and I finally could finally make out what they said. Your fly is down. So I looked down. Sure enough, my fly was down. It was down for at least 4 fights on the Jumbotron. And it's a good thing that it wasn't very packed because people would have seen. I don't think anything was sticking out, but still, it's not a good look. We might be back next week. I don't know. Hell if I know. It's just as much of a surprise to me as it is to you. But thanks for listening. People like mypodcast.com, pendulumpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, Paul. Bye.